It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, you know. I'm on the Morning Star Drive, you know.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's Tuesday, April 12th, and this is the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. We're on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So what is happening on this fantastic Tuesday? We've got some current news from around the world, looking into the life of Prophet Isaiah, and thoughts of the week of getting back on track after this pandemic. All right, so how are you doing today? Monday is officially over. We're back onto the middle, or in the big chunk, the meaty part of the week, getting a lot of stuff done. Hope you guys are enjoying yourselves, and thank you so much for joining us here on the Morning Star Drive. So keep liking, keep commenting. I want to get the likes and the comments and the comments on the comments and the likes on the comments and the comments, or whatever it is, but it is all about building this community for English-speaking members from around the world. I know there's a lot, just a little bit more influx of more people that have been joining onto SoundCloud too. So really grateful and thankful all of you guys are following on SoundCloud. Also, let's build the community together. Keep liking, commenting, do what you can. Would love to hear from you guys. So it's been quite an interesting week. I'm recovering from my 7 days of being with my nephews. Actually, right now, I am drinking a cup of coffee, which I really desperately need at this moment. Well, not so much, because I went to exercise this morning at 7 a.m., which I'm trying to do every day. I only take one day off a week, but it's really, really nice to be back in shape, right? And, it's kind of like a confidence booster when because when you work out, you are releasing endorphins, right? Because of all that energy that you're using to build yourself and look better, but it just releases so many endorphins. It's such a good thing to do, especially in the morning. But there is something I'm learning about myself a bit better, right? And this is from the last 2 days. And those of you guys know that I am doing a lot of investing here and there, trying to work on my financial freedom and stuff like that too. And it's really interesting because you realize about yourself, or just human beings in general, like the psychology that we go through and why we make certain decisions and why we don't. And I got into 2 more different projects over the last 2 days. I didn't invest a lot. I just put a little bit of money in it. But it was really interesting to see why I all of a sudden jumped into these 2 new projects that I didn't know very well. Well, they're kind of a fork of that baked beans project I was showing you before, but they're on different different exchanges. And I was like, they're on different networks. But I was like, oh, why did I do this? Like, I should have just invested it back into the one I was already doing. But sometimes in my head it's just like, oh, this is something new, and that's really interesting because I realized number one is, I got into these projects, number one, because they're new, right? So new is like a novelty. And I realized with just human beings in general, we like new things, right? That's why people line up for the iPhone 12 or iPhone 13, or maybe, later on, it's going to be iPhone 27, whatever it is, right? People line up to watch movies. People line up to get a lot of different things because they're new and no one else has it, right? And one of the cool things, one of the things about these projects that I get into for passive income, it's really interesting because these things are brand new. No one's tried it, which means it's possible it's not very good. But I realized, oh, you know what? Human beings are really into new stuff, and we need these new things every once in a while. And it made me think about church too. If you keep doing the same thing over and over again in church, people eventually get bored of it. They need something new, right? They need something either upgraded or something that's at a higher level. And that's what gets people back into church, right? The second thing I realized is, I talked about this a little bit before, but it's more of an emotionally psychological thing, like the FOMO of missing out. And I keep hearing about these projects and hearing that, because I'm constantly listening all the time. And as I'm listening to all these projects, oh my gosh, this one's so good. Oh, this one's so good. Oh, this one's so good. And for some odd reason, even though I'm not even in the project, I keep track of it for some reason. And then all of a sudden, it makes me want to get into it when, just because I'm constantly looking at it all the time. And the third reason I looked at was because sometimes projects are really good. Like you learn about it, you see that this is a great project, and you want to get yourself into it, and you want to join it. But the interesting thing is this: in the end, right? In the end, I thought to myself was, wait a second. What is the overlying thing that matters the most? That even if the project was great, even if the economics of it or whatever it was really really good, what would be the underlying thing that matters more than anything else? And of course, the number one thing that it's in my head is it's finance. Literally, in the end, the most important thing is going to be the finance, right? That's going to be the biggest thing that matters more than anything else is, do I have money to even invest in it? And I thought to myself as, yeah, that's so true, because you can have the best project, but if you don't have any money, it makes no difference. And I thought to myself, I was like, oh, it's so true, because when it comes to church and faith, and especially our relationship with God, there has to be that underlying thing that matters more than anything else, that nothing else goes or nothing else really matters until that's done. And of course, when it comes to the relationship with God and to each other, it's all about love. And I was like, oh man, love is like that. Love is like my financial situation my financial situation in this, when it comes to my investments, because it doesn't matter how good something looks or how great it might be. If I don't have the money for it, it makes no difference. So I was like, that's going to be the biggest thing, right? So it made me really get myself back into, you don't have to be looking at all these other different projects. You don't have to be doing all these other different things. All you need to do is basically just all you have to do is basically understand what the underlying reason for all things. So now I'm starting to cut off these, like they all have these Discord channels, and I'm cutting them off because there's no point of me even getting into it, or like all of a sudden one of them blows up and then I feel like really guilty, like, oh, I should have done it, right? Like I was feeling that over the weekend with one project. I could have gone in at like $68, and then now it's already up to $100. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so crazy, right? But I'm like, but in the end, if you don't have the money to get into it, what's the point? So I start to cut things off, like, yeah, I don't really need this or this. There's plenty of opportunities coming out all the time. So yeah, that's one thing I was kind of realizing about just human beings in general, why we get interested, why we make bad decisions or make decisions in general. And I was thinking, like, yeah, we like novelty, things that are new, things that are original, like no one else has. We like, we get FOMO, like we listen to what other people say, and then we feel like, oh, I should have been there, and then you feel all guilty and bad. Haven't you guys ever had that when it's like you're in Wollongong and then you go to the bathroom and you come back like, oh my gosh, you missed it since he came out, he shook all of our hands, right? And you're like, what, right? And you're like, I'll never go to the bathroom again. Oh, I can't believe I missed it, right? So you have that kind of that FOMO thing that kind of just ruins your mind. And of course, there's also knowledge, but all these things are wrapped into, like, for that situation, for my investments, it's my money. But when it comes to faith, all those things are wrapped in love. And if you don't have that love, you can't really do anything with those anyways, right? So that was kind of an interesting 2 days that I've had. Tomorrow, guys. No, tomorrow. On Thursday, we have a new talk coming out, and this is a really controversial one for the former faith, which is once saved, always saved. And this is a very interesting one because, a lot of Christians believe that once you're saved by God, because it's predestined, you can never not be saved. Like, you're saved no matter what you do from that point on. And it's kind of like, it's a very interesting thing that kind of takes out all responsibility from human beings, which I think is a bad thing. Well, it is a bad thing because Nassim told us it's not like that, but this is an interesting one that you guys can take a look at for you and your newcomers, and you guys can learn it yourselves how to, counteract or how to talk about this and discuss it with another person from the former faith also. Okay, so that's once saved, always saved. And then, of course, this week's Sunday edition, have you guys, I see a lot of people have been watching Veronica Kramer from EU, and great interview learning about her journey into this history, and really fun. And she's the first blessed couple in all of Europe. So go ahead and check out that Sunday edition. All right, so let's get this show started on the road, and we're going to start off with today's featured arts of the day on this amazing Tuesday. We're going to start off with Dia Wings from Korea. This song just dropped on 3/16, which means it's less than a month ago. Oh gosh, you know what? It's the 12th, which means 3/16 was almost 4 days later. It's going to be a month since 3/16, which is quite crazy that it's been that long. But yeah, we're already smack in the middle of April, so I hope you guys, wow, time is going by really fast. But we're going to listen to this Dia Wings from Korea. Korea with We're Going Up Now. That's our brand new single that dropped. And then we have MC One Love from Australia with The Journey, and of course AG from Japan with Come Down on Me, Holy Spirit, the EDM mix. All right. So I hope that everyone, let's enjoy and make sure we pray and put a little prayer for all these member artists from around the world.
새로운 자유로움이 내 안에 차올라 Nobody can describe me, I know who I am 정해진 운명 따윈 믿지 않아, I don't care All limitations are set by yourself 내 길이 전에 오늘 정해져 있는 길이라고 누가 말했어요 어느 길을 가든 내가 선택하면 가는 거지 앞에 놓인 두 가지 길 중에
난 배우고 알았으니 자유로움이 벅차오른 이유 날개가 돋아난 내 I'm free 거기에 도착한 내 덕분에
I can't help loving myself 나만의 diamonds 나만의 crown One who wants to wear the crown Wear the crown, then wear the crown
We're going up now Keep going, that's right Keep moving, that's right You ready? Be strong We're going up now Keep going, that's right Keep moving, that's right You ready? Be strong We're going up now
뭣도 모르고 뭣도 모르는 것들 법을 모르니 덫에 걸린 적들 있지 난 달러만을 찾지 않아 성공 법칙 just do it 내 자신을 kill it 매일 새로 태어나 아님 그냥 자연스럽게 그리 살지 정해 아니 연속된 굴레에서 벗어나 새롭게 깨어나
근데 나를 집비틀 거리던 좀 더 예쁜 톤으로 좀 더 나를 튠하고 만들어 myself 다 들어오르만 내 때를 바꿔도 call me on the whole of the smooth 좀 더 올라가고 싶다며 그럼 너부터 만든다며 눌러봐 새롭지가 매다매 졸았어도 밤에 더 빛나는 다이아몬드
Poverty and anguish, that's an ill diet. You don't wanna try it. In the work so cold, got my heart in a vice hold. Power of Lord's work is my heart defibrillation. Let me spell it out for you. Too great for abbreviation. Struggling, no peace, can't even sleep. Stress creeping in, stuck in the clay and mire. Hanging by the wire, tormented by the liar. Need an escape, don't wait. Holy Spirit can relate. Only one who can pull you through. Life's a test, but we blessed. Every day's a blessing, I'm not finessing. As long as you're still breathing, there's hope to change, rearrange a new mentality. The word of truth based in reality. Call out to God, the higher power, no Jack Bauer. Making life so sweet when it is sour. Saving in the 11th hour. Life's energy was diminished, I felt like I was finished. Battery on empty, Satan trying to tempt me to get reckless with my ways. Let the truth resonate, don't hesitate. Better things await you, keep moving forward toward that breakthrough. Through the fire tribulation, new transformation. Be all you can be, find strength in the Trinity. Holy Trinity holds you down, picks me up off the ground. I was lost when I met him, I was found. Word up, word up. I was blind but now I see, I was living without hope. At the end of my rope, the sound is so dope. I met the Lord's history, purpose ain't a mystery. I was blind but now I see, I was living without hope. At the end of my rope, the sound is so dope. I met the Lord's history, purpose ain't a mystery. My state was incomplete, had to bow down at his feet. See some dark nights out there on some cold streets. Satan never defeats me where the word and truth are complete. See, it completes me. God, Holy Son, Holy Spirit, complete. Three, completely united with the triune, enlighten my path. Walk step by step, hand in hand with the Lord. Can't afford to go back, nothing remains. Friends committing suicide, people making bad choices. God hears the broken people's voices. We ride for the Lord, Messiah, Messiah. Riding on the eagle's wings, flying higher, higher. You'll be caught up, raptured. My heart is captured, my spirit has raptured. Used to carry a knife for protection until I met the Lord's affection. Resurrection, crossed from a place of death to new life introspection. Asking what's life's purpose made me nervous, no longer feel dead. I'm in love with the one holding the key to life everlasting. Hear it in your speakers blasting. Gonna get back what Satan stole from me. Do righteousness and hard work. Sick condition, facing level. You can hear it in the bass, you can hear it in the treble. I was blind but now I see, I was living without hope at the end of my rope. The sound is so dope, I met the Lord's history, purpose ain't a mystery. I was blind but now I see, I was living without hope at the end of my rope. The sound is so dope, I met the Lord's history, purpose ain't a mystery.
was AG from Japan with the EDM version of Come Down on Me, Holy Spirit. A lot of people enjoying his music. Before that was The Journey from MC One Love from Australia. That's Daniel Patterson, part of Rapture Collective. And of course, feature arts of the day, that's Dio Wings from Korea with We're Going Up Now. All right, so let's get into news going on around the world. And of course, this is such an important part of our day, and I hope you guys are really enjoying this too, to get this type of information where most people are only seeing the information or the news within their country or even within their state or province, right? And especially right now, as we have this prayer condition going on, we really need to pray for Russia and the Ukraine, knowing the situation well. So I hope that a lot of this news will help us to understand what the world situation is, all right? So let's start off with Russia, Ukraine, and what are the things we missed in the last 24 hours. President Zelensky of the Ukraine says Russia is concentrating tens of thousands of soldiers for its next offensive in eastern Ukraine. Now, the coming period is crucial for Ukraine, and this is what Western officials are saying, as Russian forces are re-equipping, refurbishing, and redeploying. And it's likely, this comes from President Zelensky says that it's likely that tens of thousands of people have died during Russia's bombardment of the port city of Mariupol. And we're going to talk a little bit about Mariupol a little bit more. They're all the way over in this, they're a southern city, right? And some other countries are weighing in. Austria's chancellor. So Austria's chancellor has become the first EU leader to meet Putin since the start of the war. It's Karl Nehammer, describes the talks at Putin's residence outside Moscow as direct, open, and tough. Also, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi says he has repeatedly appealed to Russia's President Putin and Ukraine's Zelensky to hold direct talks. So the big thing that's going on right now is this battle for this key port city of Mariupol. Right, so Ukrainian forces are holding out against Russia in this besieged southern Southport city, despite some reports suggesting the battle is nearing its end. And yes, earlier, there's a lot of news coming out from Mariupol, and earlier a Moscow-backed militant leader in East Ukraine said his forces were in control of the city's port. Right? So Ukraine's saying that they're in charge of it, and then this Moscow-backed militant leader says that they're in charge of it. And, Denis Pushlin, head of the so-called Donetsk People's Republic, says, as quoted by Russian Interfax news agencies, that they are in charge. They're currently under control of the port city. So Mariupol has suffered the brunt of sustained Russian attacks during the war and is key to Moscow's military campaign in the Ukraine. So that is the news that's kind of going on right now with Russia and the Ukraine. Let's move over to Mexico, and we got some more news about elections and such. Lopez Obrador wins Mexico recall vote amid low turnout. So Mexico's President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador has won a referendum on whether he should step down or complete his 6-year term. More than 90% of those who cast their votes said they wanted the president to stay in office, a quick count suggests. But turnout was low at less than 19%, according to preliminary figures. The president had called the unprecedented referendum, which critics said was a tactic to distract from his government's failures. In Mexico, presidents are limited to a single 6-year term in office, but since before he was sworn in as president in 2018, Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador has promised to give voters a chance to remove him from office halfway through his term. And he argued that the referendum was vital to validating his democratic mandate. So with approval ratings around 60%, Mr. Lopez Obrador knew that he had every chance of winning the vote. And moreover, the vote carried little risk for the president in order to be binding. At least 40% of voters would have had to cast their ballots, an unlikely turnout in this first recall referendum to be held in Mexico. Now, opponents of the divisive president labeled it as a waste of money and urged Mexicans to boycott it. And those who did turn out overwhelmingly backed the president. Now, President Obrador celebrated the results, saying in a video address that more than 15 million Mexicans are happy and want me to continue until September 2024, when his term comes to an end. Now, some critics of the president feared that he may try to use an overwhelming victory in the recall referendum to pave the way for lifting Mexico's one-time presidential term limit. But late on Sunday, Mr. Obrador stressed he had no intention of staying in power beyond the end of his term in 2024. So that is quite interesting what's happening over there in Mexico. And then Australia, another election, federal election in Australia. Right, so these elections are happening everywhere right now. You know that they're going to the runoff election in France right now too. But in Australia, Prime Minister Scott Morrison calls a poll for May 21st. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison has called the federal election, and Mr. Morrison's ruling coalition holds 76 seats in the House of Representatives, the minimum needed to retain power. Polls suggest there will be a change of government, with the opposition Labour Party led by Anthony Albanese tipped to take office. However, in the last election, the centre-right Mr. Morrison won, despite most polls predicting otherwise. Mr. Morrison announced the date after talks with the Governor-General in the capital, Canberra. Mr. Morrison is the first leader to serve a full term in office since John Howard, who won 4 elections before losing to Labour's Kevin Rudd in 2007. Now, since then, what observers call the coup culture of Australian politics has led to a series of short-lived premierships. Mr. Morrison's Liberal-led coalition is defending a 1-seat majority Even though it has won 7 of the past 9 federal elections, it may be hard-pressed to do so again, political analysts say. Now, in recent weeks, the Prime Minister has faced accusations of being a bully and once sabotaging a rival's career by suggesting the man's Lebanese heritage made him less electable. Mr. Morrison has denied the allegations, but despite the most recent polling putting Labour ahead, Mr. Albanese has called his opponents the favorites, noting his party has only won government from opposition 3 times since World War II. All right, so that is the news going on, which is quite interesting how a lot of leadership around the world is changing hands at this time. Right? So I hope that we can also understand that this is also something that's very spiritual that we should be praying about also, and especially when it comes to the Sunday message. Something's like, be ready, be close to God now, because 2023 is the year. Something's happening. We don't know what it is, but something's happening, and we're all like, what is going to happen? It's really, really interesting to hear Sunstein talk about 2023 because he never really talks about it, right? So let's move into some sporting news. We'll go to the NHL, National Hockey League. Only about a handful of games left. And of course, my Vancouver Canucks are still in the hunt. Even those 3.5%, still in the hunt. So big game, LA Kings. They're in third place in the Pacific Division. We need to catch that. And they lost to Minnesota 6-3, so that's great news. But Dallas defeats Chicago 6-4, and now they're tied with the LA. And then Winnipeg defeats Ottawa 4-3, and now they're only 1 point behind us. So what are we looking at? So at the moment, the LA Kings are third place and Dallas is in the wild card spot. So both of them will make the playoffs if it stopped right now. And they both have 86 points, which is 6 points away from us, which is 3 wins. So during this last stretch of 9 to 10 games, we have to make sure that we win more than 3 and they have to lose more than 3 of their next 10 games, right? Now, the hard part about Dallas is they have played 2 games less than us, so we're not going to know what their actual score is going to be until they catch up. We've played 73 games. Well, most teams have played 73, right? So Vegas, they're right above us with 84. We're at 80, and then Winnipeg 79. We've all played 73 games, right? So we're all like, we can see like a decent, what do you call it? Like you can really judge these 3 teams. Dallas has only played 71, so we have to wait for them to play 2 more games to really understand what their point's going to be when you compare them to us. And the LA Kings have played 1 more game, right? So if we win our next game, which is tonight, if we win that game, and hoping Vegas loses and Winnipeg loses, then we will only be 4 points away from the LA Kings. Okay, 2 points away from Vegas, and I'm hoping, please, that we can catch up at least and overtake Vegas. 3.5% is not much, but it's something to pray about. Honestly, I don't even feel like it's worthy to pray about anyways too. So I have plenty of other things I wish would come true before that, but it's just kind of exciting to hear that. In NBA news yesterday, Charlotte Hornets defeat the Washington Wizards 124-108. LaMelo Ball 24 points, 10 rebounds, and 9 assists. Brooklyn Nets defeat the Indiana Pacers 134-126. Kevin Durant with 20 points, 10 rebounds, 16 assists for a triple-double. Boston beats Memphis 139-110. Chicago defeats Minnesota 124-120. Sacramento defeats Phoenix 116-109. Phoenix is the best team in the league, and they've clinched the best record, so they can kind of rest all their players that they want. And then Dallas defeats San Antonio Spurs 130-120. Luka Doncic with 26 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists. In golfing news, the Masters, which is in Augusta, Georgia, it is the biggest tournament in golf in the PGA, and Scottie Scheffler wins with a -10, beating Rory McIlroy by 3 strokes. But Rory McIlroy, man, he had an amazing last round. He shot a 64, which is 1 off from the record. But Scottie Scheffler, number 1 in the world. He's won 4 of the last 6 tournaments he's been in, so that's why he's number 1 and he's that good. Tiger Woods was probably the star of the show, coming after his huge accident from 14 months ago. But he played well the first round. He was -1, only 3 shots off, and then all of a sudden, the last 2 rounds, he went back down to +13, finishing off at 47th. But, that's his first tournament back since getting to that car accident, getting pins and needles and screws put into his leg and his back and stuff like that too. So it was really, really heartwarming to see him back on the course. All right. So there it is. That is the top 3 news in sports and world news. Hope you guys really, really enjoyed that, which leads us to an important time. What it is, it's the golden time. And yes, it is the golden time. And the golden time is a time of praise and worship to the Holy Trinity. And we're going to start off with a title that we have to say amen to every time, and that is the Lord is the answer. Amen. And then we have grab hold of the heart, and we'll end things off with one of my favorites these days, that is the place where the Lord dwells. So as one body of the Morning Star Drive, let's spend this time giving praise, honor, and glory to the Holy Trinity.
Life is full of mysteries. Who can give us the answers that we're and flow away. When your heart's left alone, it goes to waste, thoughts end in vain. Your heart flows away. Now grab your heart and control your deeds. Lead them on to love, lead them to the Lord, pressing on towards that goal. No more God, Spirit, Son work like this too. Their hearts will flow away. Their hearts will burn and fade. If they are left alone, even their hearts will continue on. Make up your mind, then act as you should. Persevere on towards the Trinity. Serve them well, treat them with love. Fire will burn, water will flow, people's hearts too burn up like that and flow away. When your heart's left alone, it goes to waste, thoughts end in vain. Your heart flows away. Now grab your heart and control your deeds. Lead them on to love, lead them to the Lord, pressing on towards that goal. No more God, Spirit, Son work like this too. Their hearts will flow away. Their hearts will burn and fade. If they are left alone, even their hearts will continue on. Make up your mind, then act as you should. Persevere on towards the Trinity. Serve them well, treat them with love. Make up your mind, then act as you should. Persevere on towards the Trinity. Serve them well, treat them with love. With a heart that is so full of love, I call upon your name, my Lord. Right now, I just want to be right next to you. With a heart that is so full of praise, I have come to finally realize, my Lord, you're surely in this place. Always until the end, you kept your promise that you'd be with us until the end of time. Oh my Lord, you never have forgotten us. You are by our side and bless us endlessly. age of peace and love abounding. I'm rejoicing in this heaven on the earth, with my heart set firmly on that world of gold. I will keep my faith and glorify your name. Lord, you are always there. Please accept our praise. I am so in love, I just want to live with you. When I think of the way you're always here running with us, I'm so grateful, Lord, and I just can't forget. I'll live only for the word of the Lord. I'll fulfill this great history with the word of the Holy Son. Only you, Lord, you are the shepherd of my life. Oh my Lord, I am lacking, so I plead. Teach me, please. Lord, you are always there. Please accept our praise. I am so in love, I just want to live with you. When I think of the way you're always here running with us, I'm so grateful, Lord, and I just can't forget. Lord, you are my bridegroom. Please receive my love. I just want to live with you in the world of gold. I will bear many fruits of love and fruits of thanksgiving, and together make this history of life. And together make this history of life.
And there it is. That is The Place Where the Lord Dwells. I believe, is that it? Yeah, is that a new, how new is that song? I almost feel like an old song too, but I think it's a new song, right? Before that was Grab Hold of the Heart, and of course, The Lord is the Answer. Amen, all right? So now that our hearts are in tuned and a little bit more spiritual at this time, we can go into the word study for today. And of course, we know that every single Tuesday, we're going to be going into the scriptures, the Bible itself, which is the foundation of all of our faith, right? Because of the Bible, the Old Testament is where the Jews were learning from, and then you have the Old Testament, New Testament for Christianity, and then we have like the complete testament, which we hear the scriptures every single week, and on top of it we have like supporting scriptures from the Bible. And when we look at like even the 30 lessons, you need to know the Bible really well in order to know the 30 lessons and how amazing what Sunseema's teaching is, okay? So today we're going to get into the book of Isaiah, and not so much going into the book itself, but kind of looking at who Isaiah is and how this book was made, okay? And what's the context, historical context from it, okay? So one thing you need to know about the book of Isaiah is it's super difficult to understand. Right? Super difficult. You can understand every word that's written, but to grasp the whole book, it's tough. You're not sure if he's repeating himself, talking about someone or something new. Sometimes you feel he's recounting some historical event with real people, and then all of a sudden he starts relating it to some vision that was given to him by God. Right? So it is a very complex book, but one of the books that we could say that it is one of the most important books. It's been quoted more than any other book in the New Testament times too, even by Jesus, right? So, and another thing we need to understand is if you don't know Hebrew poetry very well and Isaiah's style of writing, it will actually confuse you even more. So, we need to try to simplify and clarify Isaiah's prophetic message for those that are reading it at this modern age and time, okay? So the first thing we need to figure out is a timeline, right? And this is important because Isaiah does refer to events and times before his ministry as well into the future beyond his own lifetime. So we need to kind of review a brief timeline of Jewish history and the various books and authors who recorded it. And this is going to help us to identify some of the major events Isaiah refers to, as well as pinpoint the period of this of his prophetic ministry, right? And there's going to be 10 different stages, just kind of a quick review, 10 major events that happened, right, that we need to know. And of course, we'll start off with Genesis. The first is creation, the fall, and then of course the judgment of the flood. And that's called the antediluvian, which moves to the second stage is post-diluvian, right? And that's the genealogies of man and idolatry, like from the time of the Tower of Babel. And then we get into the patriarchy, which is the third stage, which is Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the patriarchs of Judaism and Christianity. And then we go into bondage, which is the 400 years in Egypt, and then includes the Passover and Exodus. And then conquest, which means that starts from the 40 years in the desert, and then going into the promised land and the judges governing, right, from Joshua to Samuel. And then, of course, we have the United Kingdom, which is the sixth stage. The whole kingdom was one, and that was by King Saul, David, and Solomon. And then the kingdom divides in half, right? Well, not literally half, but you'll have the north and the south, right? Northern Israel and southern Judah. And we're dealing with the split in the kingdom, apostasy, destruction of the northern kingdom, emergence of the prophets, right? And this is going on probably for like the next 200 years. Well, we'd say at least 150 for the time it was destroyed. Northern Israel was destroyed. And then there's the exile, which is destruction of Jerusalem, and then 70 years in Babylonian captivity. Then after that is restoration, which is the ninth stage, which means return of the remnant from Babylon that comes back to restore Israel, and then the end of idolatry. And then last but not least, there is a time of silence, right? So the time of silence is after Malachi, and this is like the intertestamentary period, right? In between two testaments, and it's like the production of the Apocrypha and its writings, right? So here we have, like, these are the 10 stages, and this is where Isaiah talks a lot about. So first, let's figure out who Isaiah is. Now, Isaiah was the son of Amoz, who is mentioned several times in connection to Isaiah, but no other information is available about him. So Isaiah is considered one of the major prophets along with Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Daniel. And this is because of the length of their writings and not that they were somehow more important than the other prophets, right? So major prophets is large books, minor prophets is small books. Isaiah's book, however, appears first among the books of the prophets in the Old Testament canon. So a position of honor, since Isaiah was at times referred to as the Prince of Prophets. So that's quite interesting. Isaiah's name means the Lord saves, right? And as was noted in the Old Testament timeline, Isaiah lived and prophesied during the time of other Jewish prophets. Amos, Hosea, and Micah were all at the same time. And we know that his ministry began around 740 BC because he himself mentions in Isaiah chapter 6, verse 1, that his visions began the year that King Uzziah died, and his death is noted by secular historians about dying around 740 BC. So Isaiah was married. And in his own writings, he refers to his wife not by her given family name, but rather by the term prophetess. So his wife was a prophetess, and that's Isaiah chapter 8, verse 3. And he may have done this because she was the wife of a prophet, or because she herself was used by God in this way, but we don't really have a record of it. So Isaiah had two sons, and they were given names which signified prophetic statements made by their father. So the first son was Shir Jashub, which means the remnant return. So a prophetic reference to the literal and spiritual return of Judah after its destruction and exile to Babylon for 70 years, and that was his son's name, right? Second son was Maher Shalal Hashbaz, which means haste, spoil, speed, prey. Not prey as in, prayer, but prey as in, someone hunting a prey. And this name implied the eventual attack of the Assyrians on the northern kingdom of Israel and its neighbor Syria. Assyria was anxious to attack, destroy, and pillage all of its enemies. Now, it's interesting to note that the Bible mentions various details of the marriages of several of the prophets. Like, for instance, Jeremiah was celibate, so he wasn't married. Hosea's wife was unfaithful, like a prostitute or something along that line. Ezekiel's wife died suddenly, but he was not allowed to mourn for her. Isaiah's wife collaborated with him in naming their sons with names reflecting prophecy concerning Israel and Judah. So Isaiah probably spent most of his life in Jerusalem, and judging by the quality of his writing and his access to the royal court of successive kings, like not just Uzziah, but Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, scholars believe that he was a well-educated, wealthy aristocrat, or perhaps part of a priestly family. So even though it seems that Isaiah had a high position in the society of his time, he was very much aware of the plight of the poor, the excesses of the rich, and the injustices visited on the common people by those in power, as well as the immorality and unfaithfulness that existed at every level of society, both rich and poor. Now, despite the advantages of education, wealth, and access to the royal court, as God's prophet, and very much like the more common social justice prophets who were his contemporaries like Amos, Hosea, and Micah, Isaiah spoke out powerfully. Not only did he speak truth to power, he did so with a beautiful, complex, and majestic style of writing. So Isaiah's bold and fearless pronouncement of God's word is what probably led to his death at the hands of Manasseh, who Jewish tradition says had the prophet executed by having him sawed in two. Okay, so it kind of comes out in Hebrews 11:37 when it says like they were stoned, they were sawn in two, they were tempted. It's kind of they're assuming that was Isaiah. Now, so that's kind of who Isaiah is. So if we go to the times that he's living in, Isaiah wrote during a very stormy period marking the expansion of the Assyrian Empire and the decline of Israel. So under King Tiglath-Pileser III, right, who reigned for about 20 some odd years, the Assyrians swept westward into Aram and into Canaan, where the northern kingdom of Israel was located. They then continued downwards into Israel, and in response, the kings of Aram and Israel tried to pressure King Ahaz of Judah into joining their alliance against Assyria. So instead of joining this alliance, Ahaz chose to ask Tiglath-Pileser for help against Israel and Aram. And today we call that a double cross, right? So Isaiah condemned this decision. So Assyria did help Judah by conquering and deporting the northern kingdom, but this left the southern kingdom even more vulnerable and exposed to attack from the north. So following its desire for complete domination of the region, in 701 BC, King Sennacherib of Assyria threatened Jerusalem itself. Okay, this is in Isaiah chapter 36. So the godly king Hezekiah prayed earnestly, and we heard about this story last week, and Isaiah prophesied that God would force the Assyrians to withdraw, and they did. Okay, and nevertheless, Isaiah warned that because of her sins, Judah would be defeated and brought into captivity by the Babylonians, the nation that eventually defeated the Assyrians and took their place as the superpower of that era. Now, although the fall of Jerusalem would not take place until 586 BC, which is more than a century into the future, Isaiah's prophecy accurately foretold, number one, the destruction of Judah, number two, the captivity of the people in a foreign land, and number three, the eventual restoration of the people from their captivity and return to Jerusalem. So Isaiah also predicted the rise of Cyrus, who would unite the Medes and the Persians, and these under Cyrus would conquer the Babylonians in 539 BC. Okay, so and then the decrees of Cyrus in 528 BC would eventually allow the Jews to return home to rebuild their city, wall, and temple. And in his prophecy, Isaiah claimed that this deliverance would prefigure another deliverance, and this time from sin, which would take place even further in the future. So Isaiah's many visions and prophecies spoke of people and events in the present, near future, distant future, and all of which make him one of the most dynamic prophets in the Bible. And this is why even when we do Bible study for 30 lessons, we do a ton of stuff from using a ton of scriptures from the book of Isaiah. Like even look from the very beginning, Isaiah chapter 9 talks about Jesus coming as a king of Israel, sitting on the throne of David, right? Also, Isaiah 53 is the opposite, talking about him Jesus being crucified. Isaiah chapter 11 talks about the animal kingdom, verses 6 through 9, and also verses 1 and 2 is very, very important because it talks about the Spirit of God resting upon Jesus, or the branch, right? And then you have like there's so many different ones. I think we use Isaiah 26:20 for resurrection. We use Isaiah 66 for the judgment of fire and the sword. So we use tons of scriptures from Isaiah. And it is a complex book, but we do use the right scriptures for it. And I hope that as we learned a little bit more about Isaiah, we're really, really able to understand. We're able to understand the book a little bit better, where the context comes from, but also be able to have a better idea when we read the book where Isaiah is coming from. Okay, so that is the word study for today on the story of Isaiah and his book. I hope you guys really enjoyed it, and I hope it inspires you to understand the scriptures even more. All right, so that is the end of the word study, which means we're going to get into our song of choice for today. Today's song of choice is always Korean Tuesday, and I chose an old school boy band, but not really too old. We're going to go back a little bit to maybe about 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, and we're going to go to Big Bang. Right, so I know that a lot of people loved Big Bang. I never got into them at all. I don't know any of their songs. I've heard snippets of it, but I know that they were very popular, that even sometimes during education, Pastor Joan would talk about it to the SS and stuff like that too. But this is a song from Big Bang. I chose a song with the most amount of likes or most amount of views on it. And this is a song called Bang Bang Bang. Super big in Korea. I hope you guys really enjoy this. This is Big Bang.
감추지 못하게 해 남자들의 분위 여자들의 가식 유머를 자신감이 불만해 난 보란듯이 너무나도 뻔뻔히 네 몸속에 파고드는 알레르기 이상한 정신에 술렁이는 천지 오늘 여기 무법지 난 불을 질러 심장을 태워 널 미치게 하고 싶어 B.I.G. Yeah we bang like this 모두 다 같이 저 맞은 것처럼 Bang 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 다 꼼짝 마라 다 꼼짝 마 다 꼼짝 마라 다 꼼짝 마 오늘 밤 끝장 보자 다 끝장 봐 오늘 밤 끝장 보자 Bang 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 널 데려가 지금 이 순간에 새빨간 저 하늘이 춤출 때 돌고 돌아 너와 나 이곳은 발라 찬양하라 떠올려 퍼지게 We go hard boy 신번 밤새 달려 죽지 법 이 노래는 거지처럼 신이 나 불러라 신청 겁이며 소리 눈마송의 멜로디 Come on doggy 결고리 사방팔방 어방가 사뿐한 고비 Wow 난 불을 질러 심장을 태워 하고 싶어 B.I.G. Yeah we bang like this 모두 다 같이 저 맞은 것처럼 Bang 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 bang
there you go. That is a really exciting song. That is Big Bang. That is Bang Bang Bang. Or in Korean, it's Bang Bang Bang. If you pronounce it the Korean way, Bang Bang Bang. But it's Bang 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 in English. But I hope you guys really enjoyed that. I'm not a big Big Bang fan. I'm just not. Because I never really got into them. But yeah, they're pretty good. I don't mind them. They're actually pretty good. A lot better than I thought they were. Either way. So that is the Korean song of choice for today, which moves us into the word study. And word study is kind of cool today because I'm thinking about a lot of churches are coming out of the pandemic. And now a lot of us are thinking about, it's not an easy thing to transition your life again. So 2 years ago, we had this massive transition where everyone is going to church all the time, meeting each other, and then we're all alone. And we're kind of like getting messed up in our own minds, and our faith is cooling down or even struggling a lot more. People doing things they normally wouldn't do, right? And fighting with your families or the people that you're living with because you can't stand being with them all the time. So now that all the churches are opening up and all the SOPs and the policies are all changing, the governments, like I said, here in Canada, we're back to normal now. No masks, no vaccine passports. You don't need any of that type of stuff. To come into the country, you don't even need a test, right? So that's kind of cool. Like, okay, so we're back to normal, but even though we've made this change on April 8th to come back to normal, the problem is that the mind has to change too, and that's going to take some time after being like this for 2 years and kind of like the fear mongering, like, oh my gosh, this time is so terrible, whatever it is, right? So now that we're recovering from the pandemic, we're kind of getting to a post-pandemic stage, and we want to get ourselves back into what we normally did before to make it a health, especially when it comes to church and our faith. We need that healthy faith and church to that life to come back. And how can we bring ourselves back? And I was talking about this with another leader, and we're discussing like, oh, what's the best way to do this? And the answer is kind of like opposite. You must be quick in a slow way. As funny as that sounds, be quick in a slow way, which means what part needs to be quick and what part needs to be slow. What needs to be quick is people need to make up their minds quickly. Making up your mind like, you know what, time to get back into it. Let's get back into it, right? Let's do it kind of thing. So you make up your mind, like today's praise song, grab hold of your heart, grab it and make up your mind to get back into things. Okay, so that's the quick part, right? So you don't want to sit there, like most people spend a lot of time just dealing in their hearts and their minds, and they're thinking to themselves, oh, should we go back or not? Or is it really safe or this or that? And, there's a lot of things that we go through in our minds. We think about, oh, but what if this happens? And what if this happens? Oh my gosh. And then, what if someone catches COVID and then we all have to go, I don't want to go quarantine. Like there's tons of things in our head, right? And for some reason, as human beings, one of the things we always do is we go into like worst case scenarios. But what if this happens? And what about this? And then what if I catch COVID and then I go to the hospital and then I die and then my vaccine? It's like we think about the worst things possible, right? And that's why the very first thing is you got to get out of that mindset and really make up your heart and mind to let's get back. Right? That's the part that has to be quick. Or else you're going to sit there in your mind thinking all the negative and terrible things and you'll never come back. You got to be quick. Quick in, got to get back into this. Now, then what does it mean be quick in a slow way? What's the slow part? So you've made up your mind quickly to get back into it, but once you make up your mind, then you have to make steps to slowly and gradually bring yourself to the level you want to be at or where you're usually at, okay? And the thing that really tears a lot of people apart is these unrealistic expectations like, oh, I'm going to get back into it, so I should be back to normal in prayer within 2 days. Or, oh, I should be like totally like feeling it like when I come to church and it's going to be so amazing. No, you have to have realistic expectations, that gradual, which means that if I want to get back to the level I was before, right, we have to think about, don't think about a certain date, right? Because the moment you start putting these expectations in, what if you don't hit the date? Then you get disappointed and you want to give up instead. So we have to think to ourselves is like, honestly, we don't know how long it's going to take. We don't. Every person is different. So that's why the timing is different too. We have to get rid of those those expectations that I have to be back to normal by a week. No. It's good to have like a soft date. I should probably be back probably around a month or so, maybe 6 weeks, right? And you'll get a general idea of I think this probably like a fair assessment. And if it's a soft date or a soft expectation, you're not going to kill yourself over not getting towards it, right? We kind of have to get ourselves into that position where we want to gradually bring ourselves without getting disappointed and understand that, we have to do it with realistic expectations of where we get back, and we need to make a plan, right? So number 1 is make up your mind quickly. Number 2 is make a plan, right? Well, you know what? It's time for me to get back into pre-dawn. So some people might think to themselves, say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go to pre-dawn at church twice a week or 3 times a week, right? And then after a couple of weeks, I'm going to go 4 times a week or whatever it is. And you kind of make a plan for that. And the next thing you do is, even though you make a plan, remember, those are just soft expectations of what you're expecting to do. You could do better, you could do worse, we're not sure, but you need to set a standard for yourself in the beginning, which is a little bit lower than usual, or it could be a lot lower, right? Because if you set a standard for yourself in the beginning, it's going to be like, oh, yay, you know what, I should be going to pre-dawn 6 times a week, this, and this, I will never be late, which might be a little bit difficult for a lot of people, and some people might be realistic, but you need to set a lower standard for yourself in the beginning of the bar you want to reach. Hey, I'm going to make it 2-3 pre-dawns. I'm going to come to church at least every Sunday, right? And then slowly raise the bar as you're moving forward, right? Which means it has a lot to do with knowing yourself and your situation. And I think a lot of people kind of lose themselves in that area because they don't know themselves well. They just have these you know what? I'm going to be like this. I'm going to be perfect. I'm going to do this like this, and this. Yeah, right? And they kind of put this excitement in their heads. Yet when they don't reach it, they get disappointed and they feel like they failed and they don't want to do it anymore, right? And what we need to do is slow and steady. And as people, especially if you're in leadership positions, whether you're a leader of yourself, leader of a team or a squad or a department or an entire church, we need to have that standard and slowly raise the bar day after day after day, or, look at it every week. Or every, at every 3 days or something along that line, where we can understand our progress, knowing myself that, you know what, if I think too crazy, then I'm going to just disappoint myself. So you know what, I just need to reach this bar here and slowly raise it up as you go, right? There's no race to who becomes normalized first, right? There's no race to who's going to be better or who's this or that. It's not a race, right? It's just about us recovering. And if we think about that as, I just want to recover. That's the most important thing. I don't want to be disappointed. I don't want to sit there and say, oh, I hate this. No, we need to recover. We really, really do. And once we recover, this is when we get ourselves into a position where we can succeed by doing what? By being quick in a slow way, right? Be quick to make up your mind. I'm going to do it. It's kind of like exercise. I'm going to start exercising. But I'm not going to start exercising these heavy weights and work out 7 days a week for 3 hours. No, when I first started working out 3 months ago, it was every other day, quick workout, nothing too hard. And then as time went on, now I'm at 6 days a week. And, I'm getting myself into a position where I'm growing and I feel more healthier and stuff like that too. But I make up my mind quickly, I'm going to work out, and then push myself bit by bit. Don't need to work too hard. Don't need to become sore, right? But now I'm in a position where doing far better, far heavier, and I feel like real growth happening in my body too, right? So when it comes to us recovering from the pandemic, I think we do need to have that mind to be quick in a slow way, right? Inspire people to make up their minds. We got to get back to normal, yet we're going to do it in a gradual way where people are not coming to church, which means let's first get the people on fire to come to church first. Let's first get the full-timers. Let's first get the leaders to come to church first, right? And that's going to be anywhere from 5 5 to 10% of your church as a realistic goal in the beginning, and slowly, step by step, we're bringing more and more people to it, right? And I do think that's a very, very important thing that we have to think about as leaders, right? And even if you're not in a leadership position, remember, you're the leader of yourself, which means you should know yourself well, that even when leaders bring up things, yeah, we can say I made up my mind, but we may not be able to do exactly like that plan, right? Like, oh, okay, we're going to come to 4 no, maybe 3. I can't do 6 right away, right? It's, sometimes I don't wake up, or sometimes, I'm still getting used to it. And this is something that we really need to consider, knowing ourselves well, but make up your mind quickly, but make a plan, manage your expectations, and set a standard for yourself so that you can gradually come back. Okay. So that is the kind of thoughts of the week about recovering from this pandemic, and I hope it's something that you guys really, really enjoyed or made you think more deeply about too. And it's something that you can also be able to, even if you're doing well, we really have to be those that understand other people's situation a lot better too. Okay. So that is the end of the thoughts of the weekend. Of course, that is the end of today's podcast. Hope you guys had a really awesome time. Everyone, enjoy your Tuesday. Spend it well together with the Lord. Pray until you meet God, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly, so let's realign. Just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, I'm on the Morning Star Drive, I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, I'm on the Morning Star Drive,